welcome back to the channel. I am glad that you tuned in. Okay, today we're going to be talking about some running rules or stuff that's in running lore. Some of these things you have probably heard about, some I'm hoping maybe you haven't, maybe you learned something, who knows. Guys, my name is Matt, and in this channel we talk about all things running. If you like running, then why don't you go ahead and give this video a thumbs up. If you're not already subscribed, consider doing so. I drop at least 2 new videos a week. Oh, and hit that bell icon so you're notified every time I drop a new video. Here's our plan. Here's how we're going to be moving forward. I'm going to go for a run. I'm going to come back. I'm going to tell you about these rules. But you know what? Let me give you one right now. So I know you've heard of this. This rule is out there. Everybody knows it. It's the 10% rule. Why the 10% rule? Because you know what? Ultimately, I don't know where it came from, but ultimately it is to prevent injury. You don't increase your mileage by more than 10% each week. But if we don't know where it came from, how has this kind of become running lore? How come everybody quotes this rule? I stand by it. I think we have to put a number on it because there's a lot of people that will just run more and run more and run more. And remember the adage, the terrible twos, too much, too soon, too fast. That is what we are trying to prevent. We are trying to prevent injury. So by putting a number on it, it kind of just sets a ceiling, right? But there was a study back in 2008 in the Netherlands, and they had 2 groups. One of the groups increased their training by 10% over 13 weeks. The other group trained for 8 weeks, and they increased their training by 30%. At the end of the study period, I don't know the numbers, but I'm going to link them in the show notes below. But the group that trained with a 10% increase, they had a 20.8% injury rate. So 20.8% of the participants got injured. The group that had 30% increase in their training, their injury rate was 20.3%. So they're not statistically significant differences, but they are. The group that trained more still got fewer injuries than the group that trained up to 10% more each week. There was another study, it was a Danish study in 2013, and they had 60 people, and I think something like 13 of them got injured. The 13 that got injured were actually increasing their mileage 30% week over week. Okay, and that's something you're probably saying, yeah, of course they got injured. They're increasing their mileage 30%. But it's important to remember that the other people in the study who did not get injured, they were increasing their mileage 20% week over week. So what am I saying by telling you this? Everyone is different, and I need you to know your body. I want you to be very careful when you are increasing your mileage week over week because it can lead to injuries. Runners are renowned for getting injuries every year, and I want you to avoid it at all costs. So just be careful, know your body, and don't increase your mileage too much. And in this case, I think the 10% rule, if we have to have a rule, I think the 10% rule is a good one. Anyway, let's go for a run. This really was a good run today, guys. It really was. Okay, I'm going to tell you why. And you know why, because of the weather. Okay, this morning it dropped to 25 degrees Celsius, 77 degrees Fahrenheit, which it may sound a little warm, but yesterday in the morning the heat index was 31 Celsius, which is 88 Fahrenheit, so a considerable drop, and it made the whole run feel just a little better. Today's run was about 20 clicks or 12.44 miles at an average pace of 8:13 a mile, which is about 5:06 a kilometer. We're talking about running rules, things like that, running lore, all right? And the next thing, before I go inside and give you a few more, I want to tell you about the conversation rule. You've heard this. You've heard me talk about it. You've heard other runners talk about it, but the majority of your runs should be run at a conversational pace. And the only reason that we're saying conversational pace is because if you can talk, it means your heart rate is low enough for you to talk. So you're in the right zone. You're in your aerobic zone, probably a zone 2, maybe a very low zone 3, and that is the best way to log the majority of your miles. By now, everyone's heard of the 80-20 rule. At least 80% of your runs need to be at this conversational pace or a fairly easy pace. The other 20%, that's when you can pick it up. That's when you can sharpen the spear, so to speak, to get faster for those races. Okay, it's time to get inside. It was still 25 degrees Celsius. That's still pretty warm. I'm still soaked. I still broke a serious sweat on this run, so I'm gonna get inside, get cleaned up, and we're gonna talk about shoes. We're gonna talk about shoe mileage as the next rule. And we're back. Welcome back to the Klutz Studio. Okay, let's get right into the next rule. So, shoe mileage. Okay, you've probably heard that shoes can be worn for 400 to 500 miles. Now, I don't know where that came from, but if you do a Google search, you'll find out 400 to 500 miles is often thrown out there for your shoes. And I want you to be careful. It's not as simple as that. Is anything as simple as that? No, it's not as simple as that. A lot of shoes are different, okay? Every shoe is different. Unless you've got the same shoes, then they're probably very similar. 400 to 500 miles, I think that's a very good estimate for some daily trainers. I have run 400 to 500 miles in my Nike Pegasus. The Brooks Ghost I'm currently running in. Those are definitely going to be good for 400 to 500 miles. But what about some other shoes? What about some other shoes that may not be good for that long? Well, the Pegasus and the Brooks Ghost, those are daily trainers. Those are made to be a little more resilient. The midsole foam is just a little firmer, so it holds up to repeated pounding day after day, mile after mile, kilometer after kilometer. You get racing shoes that have a different midsole foam. Those are not going to stand up to the type of punishment that a daily trainer would. And you have to be careful. You have to be careful because the shoe may still look fantastic after, let's say, 200, 300 miles. And I'm sorry for always using miles. Right now I'm living in the United States and we use miles here, and I realize that most of the world uses kilometers, so just bear with me. The midsole foam in a lot of racing shoes, it's a lot lighter. It's a lot lighter, so it's easier to race in, right? Shoes are moving mass, so when we're racing, we want lighter shoes, so we're moving less mass, therefore we can run faster. That comes at a cost. They do not stand up to distance as well as some of those daily trainers. I recommend that you track the mileage on your shoes that you're running in. That way you'll have some idea of how far you're running in the shoe. So maybe you want to buy that shoe again. Maybe you don't. Maybe it isn't as resilient as you'd like and you need to switch to something else. You can track your mileage using an app like Strava, and of course all the other running watch apps, they also have their own ways to track your shoes. Let's talk about eating. There is a 2-hour rule. Maybe this is new to you, but there is a 2-hour rule, and I think it's just something that somebody came up with because it makes them feel good. So basically the 2-hour rule says you don't run 2 hours after you eat. And that is obviously so your food can digest and actually leave your stomach. I recommend everyone give it a go. Why don't you eat a big meal and then go out for a run? It's really not comfortable, and that is the reason for the rule. If you're an ultra runner, then it really pays if you practice running on a full stomach, because you have to constantly eat. You have to take that fuel in and then keep going. The 2-hour rule. Yeah, I think it's a good rule to stick to if you can, and if you can't, oh well. I mean, it's not like swimming. Remember the old rule from like 100 years ago that you can't swim until 30 minutes has passed after you eat or you'll drown? That's a rule you need to stick to. No, just kidding. Have you guys heard of the 7-year rule? Okay, the 7-year rule says that runners will improve for 7 years from when they start running. This is really good for you runners that have started later in life. Like I did. I didn't start running until my late 20s. And it says you will improve for the next 7 years. However, listen, appropriate training, adequate recovery, those can extend that much longer than 7 years. The great thing is that as we get older, we move into different age brackets, and then all our PBs get reset. So we get to start again, and then we can improve for the next 10 years until we move into the next age bracket. Right now, I am a Masters runner. I have about 8 years left of being a Master before I go into the Grand Master category, and all my PBs get reset. I get to start again and improve through that decade. Fantastic. What a system. What a system. Those are 5 rules that we just learned learned about running. Let me know what rules that you have heard and what rules that you stick to in the comments below. If you got any value from this video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you're not already. Oh, and let me just tell you, please join my Strava Club. It is the best way, the absolute best way to connect with all the runners in this community. You can give them kudos for all their athletic achievements. It's really pretty fantastic. Anyway guys, I will see you in a couple of days with our next video. Be kind, be happy, run well.